Mortals need only remember that it is not strength that overcomes darkness, but light.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in Rings of Power, Episode 7. Well, the war between the elves and Sauron is in full swing, with the famous siege of Eregion that Tolkien wrote about in the Silmarillion. But will this end up being the last battle of this war? Or will Sauron's evil stretch across the centuries and spread all over Lindon like it does in the book? We're going to break down these questions and more, so let's get started. But first, I want to let you guys know that we are coming to you on tour to 11 cities with ScreenCrush Live. We're going to do live breakdowns, argue with our favorite fans, have special guests, and best of all, we're going to get to meet you in person. We'll be in Boston on November 14th. Tickets are selling fast, and you can find links for that and the other dates below and at our Discord. All the links are in the description. So the episode begins with Celebrimbor enveloped in his own little weird fantasy while the world around him burns. He dips into these jars like a bowl of nerds and melts them. Now, I can't help but see some kind of symbolism in this. The episode begins with him burning something beautiful to create something evil, which reflects what's happening outside to his city. And then that's followed with
9 for mortal men.
which is verbatim from Tolkien's text in his opening description of the Rings of Power in the Fellowship of the Ring. Now, Celebrimbor notices these gems missing from Feanor's hammer.
You say what now?
So Feanor was the greatest elven smith of all time, and Celebrimbor's mentor. He created these Cimmerils, gems so precious they contain the remaining light of the two trees of Valinor after Melkor destroyed them. Now, in past episodes, Sauron played on Celebrimbor's jealousy of his master, and his desire to prove that he was his master's equal or his superior. Sauron brilliantly exploits a person's inner desires, and then lays a path before them to achieving what they think is their goals. Now, we're going to talk about this as we go on, but this episode does a great job of showing how Sauron's skills as a manipulator means that he actually does very little. Because, as we see in this opening, he's great at showing people what they already want to see. Now, the sight of this mouse briefly breaks Celebrimbor out of his stupor, and he sees himself as he is. Now, I think this is because subconsciously he knows something is not right with the mouse, just like he knows there's something not right with his surroundings. You see, a mouse is a part of nature, so it should follow the rules of the natural order. But Sauron and the One Ring and all the rings are all about subverting and controlling the natural order. The ring itself symbolizes the machine, the idea that all natural endeavors could be brought to heel under one man. But then Sauron rolls into the forge like Colonel Parker, making sure Elvis has enough red ones before he goes on stage. Celebrimbor says,
When the world is still, then the ideas can flow freely.
And in past videos, I've compared Celebrimbor's crafting of the rings as a kind of addiction to his artistry. Just like a junkie chasing his first high, Celebrimbor marveled at the creation of those first 3 rings. So with these other rings, he is trying to chase that high of perfection. Now notice how Anatar's belt is braided, just like the walkway in the outside courtyard. This is a subtle way to show how Sauron and Eregion are becoming one as he exerts his influence over the city. And now he's clad all in black as he gets closer to revealing his true form to Celebrimbor. Over the past couple episodes, we've seen his tunic gradually add more darkness after he first appeared to Celebrimbor clothed fully in bright colors. Symbolically, Sauron's spreading evil can also be seen in this opening shot of the battle, where a black trail of smoke mars this white sky. You know, we only have 1 episode left of Rings of Power this season, and I'm really gonna miss this show. I mean, there's so many streaming options out there, it's really overwhelming, and I love having a show that I can just latch onto. But I feel like now, I always feel like I have to subscribe to every single service just so I don't miss something.
Yeah, that FOMO hits me real hard too. Like when I have a stick, but then I see a dog with a different stick.
Right? I mean, I know you guys have felt the frustration. You already subscribe to a dozen streaming services, but the one thing you want to watch is not streaming on any of them. But here's the thing. That show or movie is probably streaming on your service, but just not in the United States. So you can use NordVPN to change your country, and voila, you can watch Starship Troopers on Disney+. NordVPN has so many features, and this is why I've been a loyal NordVPN subscriber for years. You can add up to 6 devices on your account, and when you're traveling, it is crucial for mobile next generation encryption. And now NordVPN is offering an amazing deal through our link below, nordvpn.com/ScreenCrush. When you sign up now, you get a huge discount on a 2-year plan plus 4 additional bonus months. This is an incredible deal, so if you're thinking about signing up for NordVPN, I highly recommend you jump on this fast. NordVPN also offers threat protection, which deletes shady downloads before they finish, and their ad blocker is so great that it's the only ad blocker I use. So go to nordvpn.com/ScreenCrush for an exclusive discount through ScreenCrush. Just click our link in the description, and I highly recommend this. It is a great deal. Now, back to Rings of Power. Outside, Onotar spreads more lies, taking control of the city and influencing the minds of Myrdania. They watch as the Uriks use trebuchets to fire at the mountain damming the river. So, a few things to note here. One, damming the river is an unnatural act, in keeping with the villains in the show trying to usurp nature. Now, we also saw this with Saruman's Uriks damming the river in the Two Towers and in Fellowship, but also Adar's forces did something similar last season. They triggered the eruption of Mount Doom by diverting water, similar to their methods here. And then Arondir shows up. Remember, he and his subplot are also in this show, you guys. Back at Khazad-dûm, King Durin is ready to mobilize his army against his daughter-in-law, Disa, to take control of the Mithril mine. And as he gives orders and points to his general, the ring is very, very prominent. So what we're seeing here are two leaders under the influence of Sauron being influenced to bring their kingdoms to ruin. In each case, the leaders become willing participants because they are motivated by their own desires, either for glory or for riches. Then Elrond returns, and remember, he and Durin have been friends for years. Durin pledges to send his armies to aid the elves, and I should note that this does happen in the history that Tolkien wrote. The dwarves arrive and help to rout Sauron's army, but it's too late to save Eregion. So Durin might still show up at the battle in the next episode, but then again, the show has changed a good bit of what Tolkien originally wrote. And then we get this show's first truly epic battle. It's no Helm's Deep, but it is very, very expensive. Now, I want to note that in the Silmarillion, actually centuries passed between the forging of the rings and this battle. This is actually one of the first battles in a war called the War of Sauron and the Elves. And this war also stretches on for centuries and sees Sauron conquering most of Lindon, that's the Elvish capital, and the Grey Havens. Now, Adar is also an invention for this show, which I am fine with. Kind of like Apple Plus's Foundation series, this show is given a difficult task: to place hundreds of years of history into a single show while keeping the same cast of characters intact. So I appreciate that they had to condense the storytelling, but it does make me wonder what's going to happen next. If you're a fan of the books, then this can either be really irritating or really exciting for you, because on the one hand, you're not seeing the Second Age adapted the way it was originally written, but on the other, you're getting a story told in an exciting and new way. Because look, at the end of the day, we all love Lord of the Rings, and that is why we love designing Lord of the Rings parody merch for you, and I'm excited to show you these three designs. We have the Hobbits crossing Abbey Road, Pippin's second breakfast diner.
What about second breakfast?
And Gollum swimming after the One Ring like it's Nirvana's Nevermind album cover. Shopping our merch store is the best way to directly support our channel. Links for all these products are below. So Celebrimbor finally notices that the mouse is on a deja vu loop.
Oh yeah, like a security camera during a heist.
Yes, exactly. Sauron looped his illusion, like when burglars put a loop into a security camera, you know, in a movie from the 90s. But then this glamour truly dissolves when Celebrimbor throws Fëanor's hammer through a perfect stained glass window. The symbolism here is not subtle. He's throwing away his mentor's work and legacy, shattering something beautiful in the process, and then letting evil pour in. It's exactly what he's done to himself and to his own city. And note this camera work. He steps onto the balcony, looking pristine. The camera tilts down, we see the battle, and then back up as we see him as he truly is, dirty and tainted by Sauron's magic. And it is heartbreaking. And then we learned what was really in that cup of mithril. It was Sauron's blood, or at least the goo that passes for Sauron's blood. So in the book, when Sauron created the rings, Tolkien kept it nebulous, saying that the rings were somehow tied to him through magic. But I like that this show is literalizing that connection. The rings of power literally have Sauron's essence inside of them, which explains why the Elvish rings remain untainted by his evil. It is a very literal interpretation of the text, but Peter Jackson made the Eye of Sauron into a giant spotlight, so I don't mind filmmakers visualizing some of these more invisible elements. He says,
I have many names.
Which is, you know, like the devil. Both Sauron and Satan manipulate people into doing their work for them. Outside, we see that Celebrimbor's people have lost all faith in him, and his struggle is actually very similar to what Frodo and Sam go through on the steps of the Cirith Ungol. The ring's evil clouded Frodo's judgment.
No, Sam, it's you.
And to cement this, Sauron uses his power to nudge Myrdania over the edge, where an orc kills her. Again, he rarely has to do his own killing, it's always just a misdirect into others performing jobs for him. So he offers Celebrimbor a devil's bargain.
Finish the 9, and I will spare your city.
And, you know, this works at first because he knows what Celebrimbor actually wants, to be known as the greatest smith who ever lived. And then Elrond rides in with the Elven cavalry, and in the Silmarillion, Elrond did lead this battle at Eregion. Now note how the Elvish armor is incredibly ornate and covers all of their skin, while the Uruk armor has more patches and leaves large section of their flesh exposed. It's a great way to create a visual contrast between these two sides, and it's another example of the show's terrific production design. So when they charge into battle, the orcs reform their line, similar to how the orcs reformed their lines when Gandalf arrived at Helm's Deep or when the Riders of Rohan rode into Gondor in Return of the King. But Elrond halts when he sees that Galadriel is Adar's prisoner and he sees that they've already drawn her blood. When they're treating, Adar says,
"You have the beauty of your foremother, Melian of the Valar."
Now, to me, this sounds like he says Mirion of the Valar, which I have to be mishearing that. So let me know what you think he actually said in the comments. See, the Valar are like the divine angels who serve the creator, Eru. Now, there were 14 Valar and 7 of them were females, so he's referencing one of those Queen Valar. But I cannot actually hear which one he meant. Presumably, it's one of the Valar who was tied to writing and scribing because Adar continues to use this as a dig at Elrond, which I'll talk about in a bit. And then Elrond kisses Galadriel.
Oh, they're in love.
I don't think so. I think this was a distraction kiss, like Black Widow and Steve Rogers in The Winter Soldier.
Public displays of affection make people very uncomfortable.
Yes, they do.
Because, like, we've never gotten any romantic vibes from these two before, just strong friendship. Now, Halbrand and Galadriel, they f***ed. Then Durin gives his big hero speech to rally the kingdom of Khazad-dûm. He mentions that Sauron the Stoneheart stole 7 smithing secrets from their forebears, which, hey, explains why Halbrand was so darn good at smithing.
Telling you, there is not another man on this isle that knows this craft better than I.
Back on the battlefield, the fight is in full swing. Now, my favorite moment was this elaborate death of an orc, who gets catapulted.
Like Propeller Guy in Titanic.
Exactly, and this is one thing I think is missing from this show sometimes. It gets very caught up in the self-importance of everything, but it forgets to show that the heroes in Lord of the Rings all have a little bit of joy in their lives. Like how at the Battle of Helm's Deep, in the book and the movie, Legolas and Gimli compete with their kill counts.
Legolas! 2 already! I'm on 17!
But then this moment of orc death levity is undercut by the death of a horse.
Poor Artax.
Yes, poor Artax.
Artax, you're sinking! Come on, turn around!
And then we get the sense that the orcs are on the verge of mutiny against Adar. Elrond even sensed this when he was treating with Adar.
Are you prepared to spend their lives so freely? Are they?
We also saw 2 orc defectors in the last episode, so I think this is all setting up that the orcs will eventually turn on him and follow Sauron. Maybe not this season, but definitely in future seasons. Galadriel picks her lock, and I'm a little surprised that Elrond didn't transfer the lockpick to her with a kiss, kind of like this scene in Modern Family.
We had a whole incident at the warehouse.
Do you have the key?
No, but you do.
After all, like Phil Dunphy, the elves practice the deep magic. She disguises herself in a cloak, like Sam and Frodo when they were in Mordor, and also like the Hobbit, she gets roped into working while she's there. Then she witnesses an Uruk funeral, which really humanizes them. And I love this kind of thing. In the Jackson movies, we only see the Uruks as these mindless, savage monsters, which opened up all sorts of questions. Are they really just mindless, evil killing machines? Did they have a culture? Did Aragorn institute a policy of genocide against the remaining orcs following Return of the King? So this show is adding some tenderness and tragedy to their story, as Adar sheds a tear for their dead. Arondir saves Galadriel. Remember, they met in the Southlands last season. He wants revenge on Adar for what he did to the Southlands, which led to the death of the woman that he loved. But she convinces him that rather than throw his life away now, he should throw it away on the battlefield at sunrise. And then we get something that I'm not really thrilled about. In Khazad-dûm, Durin's army is ready to roll. By the way, I love the look of these masked dwarf guards. They look so cool. And then the dwarf general runs in and says that something happened off screen.
Father, he turned his axe on my men, cut through them like stalks of wheat.
We should have seen that. The Ring of Power gave Durin III the power to cut through his enemies like paper, and then he started hacking at the walls of the mine. That would have been so cool to see on screen. So now, Prince Durin has a choice. Rally his armies to fight Sauron the Deceiver, or save his kingdom from the Balrog. Now, even though he initially calls his army back, we all know how this is going to end.
You shall not pass!
Back at Eregion, Sauron tries to manipulate Celebrimbor by talking about how they were both used by their masters.
No, it pains me. Treating you like Morgoth treated me.
Now this is an interesting dimension for Sauron's character. In the text, it said that he wanted to restore Morgoth, or to finish what he started. But here we see that his goal is not the same as his masters.
What he wished to destroy, I wished to perfect.
Sauron sees the world as something that needs to be burned and then reshaped, you know, like a ring. Whereas Morgoth only wanted to fill the world with his own song. Ultimately, though, their aims are the same. They each want to spread conformity and fascism across Middle-earth and Valinor. So this scene where Celebrimbor hesitates to drop the rings in the fire is also a clear nod to Frodo and Isildur's reluctance to drop the One Ring into Mount Doom. But Celebrimbor overcomes the evil of the rings and discovers that these forces cannot destroy Sauron's evil. This is just like when Gandalf threw the ring into Frodo's fireplace.
It's quite cool.
These rings can only be destroyed in Mount Doom. So to escape, Celebrimbor makes the ultimate sacrifice, his thumb, which will prevent him from being able to do what he loves, crafting really pretty jewelry. Initially, his people think that he is insane, and they're going to lock up Pappy Celebrimbor in his room until Galadriel sets them straight.
Lord of Eregion orders.
This is the Lord of Eregion.
Now, in the Silmarillion, it's said that at this battle, Celebrimbor was only able to keep 3 rings away from Sauron, the 3 Elvish rings. So, I think the next episode, Galadriel and Annatar are going to come face to face. All last season, Sauron manipulated Galadriel into making her believe that he could offer her an army, which is why she is so sympathetic to what he's done to Celebrimbor's mind.
It's my fault.
No.
Celebrimbor freely admits that he wanted exactly what Sauron offered, and he allowed himself to be blinded.
So, I blinded myself to what he was.
Now, like I said before, the Siege of Eregion is just one of the many battles of the war between Sauron and the elves. But on a TV budget, I think this might be all we're going to see on this show. On the battlefield, Adar decides to send in the Hillshrow Damrod, even though
we'll kill our own kind.
Now, Adar's indifference might remind you of Thanos in Endgame.
Rain fire! But sire, our troops, just do it!
Which of course was inspired by Longshanks in Braveheart.
Won't we hit our own troops?
Yes, but we'll hit theirs as well.
Elrond and Arondir team up to fight this troll, much like how the Fellowship had to gang up against this cave troll in the Mines of Moria. Back at the palace, Celebrimbor tells Annatar,
"Hand will never touch another ring again."
But just as he says this, his troops surround Sauron, forming a ring. And then Sauron proceeds to use his influence to manipulate all of them into killing each other. So, in a way, he has already touched a ring symbolically. Just like how, in Season 5 of the show, he will lay his hands on the literal One Ring. He has them kill one another, again showing that Sauron rarely has to do his own killing. His real power is getting others to do the work for him. Now, on the battlefield, we get a few cool tropes. The slow motion, all is lost moment from the hero. The almost nameless hero getting in one last blow against darkness. And then we finally get to see Gil-galad be an absolute badass cutting through orcs.
Yeah, I hear King Durin cut through his own men the same way.
Yeah, I heard about that too. Arondir faces off against Adar, who, by the way, still has Sauron's sword from Season 1, which I'm gonna say probably won't work well when he tries to use it against Sauron when they face off next episode. Now, Elrond's assertion
Durin will come.
Played a lot like this.
The eagles are coming!
One of these nights.
But no elves came for Elrond that day. He was so sad. His friend Durin did not come out to play.
But you're right, it is really sad how hopeless Elrond feels at this moment.
Durin will come.
Adar calls him Rumil, which, by the way, is like a deep-cut insult between elves. Rumil was an elven scholar and the inventor of the alphabet. Earlier, Adar said that Elrond was better suited for his scrolls than he was for fighting.
More suited to wielding a scroll than a sword.
So with this insult, he's telling his enemy that he was never fit for battle and that he should stick to his ABCs. Adar takes away the elven Rignenia, which frankly is probably going to backfire when he tries to use it. Perhaps when he puts the ring on, it will reverse the effects of Morgoth's magic and revert Adar back into an elf. Now, if this happens, it will finally convince Elrond that the elvish rings are untainted by Sauron's evil. And then the episode ends with a metal song. This is called The Last Battle of Damrod, composed by composer Bear McCreary, and I love it. Lord of the Rings has always been metal. Just listen to any Led Zeppelin song. But what did you guys think of this controversial ending choice for the music? What did you think of the episode? Do you have any questions? Was I wrong about anything? Let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.